Welcome to the Painter's Business Podcast with Stephanie Stover. Let's roll. This is the Painter's Business Podcast, the show for growth-minded painting company owners who want to scale, profit, and dominate their markets. I'm your host, Stephanie Stover, and every week we bring you zero-fluff strategies, proven tactics, and behind-the-scenes insights from real business owners and experts getting it done in the field. And here's the deal. Every single episode gives you at least one practical, no BS action you can take today to grow your business. Whether you want more residential leads, safer crews, or bigger commercial contracts, this is where painters come to grow. Let's roll. Today, I am really excited. I'm thrilled to be joined by Robert Dahlstrom, CEO and founder of Apellix. Robert is a recognized thought leader in industrial robotics. He's written over 50 papers, spoken at global conferences, and contributed to leading publications. Great to have you on the show, Robert.
Oh, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
So tell me about the origin story of Apellix. What was the light bulb moment for
This
you?
is kind of an interesting story, and having a painting contracting business that you then scaled and did very well with. One of the things I did, my father-in-law was a painting contractor, third generation, and out in California when I was going to college, I worked for him, and so I was a painting apprentice for 3 years. Fast forward many years later, I needed my house painted here in Florida. You would drive underneath it, and there was 2 stories above it, so it was pretty tall. So I had some time. I'm like, I can do this, and had the scaffolding delivered, and then I'm up there on a ladder on top of the scaffolding, and I quickly realized I'm not in college anymore, And then it was kind of the innovator's dilemma, right? There's got to be a better way. And so my first company was a software company. And to me, drones are flying computers. And if you're a flying computer, you're software. So I'm up there painting and I'm like, oh man, it'd be so cool if there was a drone that could paint. And then I'm like, well, that won't really work. Battery life is really limited. Paint's really heavy. You'd have to constantly land, swap the batteries, and replenish the paint. And I looked down and I said, Eureka, because there was the paint compressor on the ground and the paint on the ground. And I'm holding the spray nozzle, and I'm like, yeah, put everything on the ground, power it from the ground, paint on the ground, come up a hose, an umbilical cord, a tether, and with software, control the drone so that it's able to paint. So I went home, built a proof of concept in my garage that actually worked a little better than I expected, and then launched the business from there.
Very cool. So one of the things that I was looking at on your website was about the war on corrosion. Why is corrosion such a massive and expensive problem?
Well, that's really interesting because my experience, right, was in architectural coatings, right, painting houses. And then when I got into Apellix and, made a one-page website and a one-page press release, some of the largest paint companies in the world were contacting us, and a lot of industrial facilities where they're doing the protective coatings contacted us. And so I kind of got into that world, and then it's just amazing. There's a great book called Rust, The Longest War, and it talks all about the corrosion industry. And it's so large that it's the number 2 line item in the U.S. Navy's budget after personnel.
Really?
It is measured as a percentage of GDP. It's not measured in the billions as far as the market size.
Huh.
It's in the United States, it's 3% of our GDP for direct corrosion costs every year, plus an additional 3% for indirect costs. So you're looking at 6% of our GDP just for corrosion protection. So it's a massive industry. And now you're talking critical infrastructure protection. And that's why they call these coating systems, they don't paint these, critical infrastructure things like, oil and gas refineries or bridges, right? They're critical infrastructure. They have a coating system. It's not just paint. And those coating systems are primarily designed to prevent or eliminate or reduce the amount of rust. Because to make metal, what we do is we take a bunch of rock and we pour a bunch of energy into it and heat it, right? And melt it and create metal out of it and burn away the impurities. Well, entropy is a natural process. Over time, millions of years, right? That wants to break back down and turn back into rock. So even if you take a piece of metal and you coat it where it's airtight on both sides over a long enough time period, it's still going to shrink. And anytime oxygen or water gets in there with this metal, now you've got corrosion. And so it's it's an expensive deal. And you think about everything in the world that's made out of metal. I mean, it's in our skyscrapers, it's in the ships, it's in the airplanes, it's in trains,
Hmm.
it's in all the manufacturing facilities. It's a big, big, big market.
So, when you talk about the war on corrosion, what are safety concerns in such a big market?
Yeah, a lot of these infrastructure projects, even architectural projects, right? They're large, complex geometric shapes. So the built world, the built environment is full of buildings, but it's also full of, factories and manufacturing facilities. And so all these places that need to be painted quite often require somebody on a ladder or scaffolding or lift to go up there and do the painting. And so one of my statements is, it's 2025. Why are people still hanging on ropes coming down the side of a building to wash the windows or to do painting and stuff if we can have a robot that goes up there instead?
So why are people doing that?
Just because it's taking a while for the technology to get there. So even though
Hmm.
I founded Apellix 11 years ago, we're just now coming out with a spray painting drone. We have a power
Oh,
wash drone, right, that,
yep.
that does limited surface prep. We've won a NACE engineering award for that, National Association of Corrosion Engineers. It's in 21 countries around the world. But the reason it's taken so long to get the spray painting drone out there is because it is a complicated piece of technology to manufacture. One of the things I tell people, if you think about it, right, it's more difficult than a self-driving car, right? If you tell a car to stop, a
Oh.
self-driving car to stop, it stops. You can't tell a drone to stop, it'll fall out of the sky. Just to hover in one position, right? Our drones have 8 motors and 4 arms. Each motor is spinning at a slightly different speed just to hover. And
Hmm.
so the computer on there is sending 500 adjustments per second to those motors just to hover. So that's why, I come back to my statement, drones are software, because it's the software that makes these things do the amazing things they do. And,
Hmm.
also unlike a self-driving car, if you don't run into anything, you're a success. Well, the tolerance when you're painting, especially for protective coatings, when you're laying down, you know, 12 mils wet, looking for 4 or 5 mils dry. If you're off a couple inches, you've either made a mess and got paint all over everything, or you've got a holiday, a skip, where you don't have any paint. So the tolerances are extremely high, and then compound that with the aerodynamics because you're floating in air, right? It's worse than a boat floating in water because you've got that sixth degree of motion that happens when you're an aircraft. So
Yeah.
it's extremely complicated to be able to program a drone to do coatings, but we've done it.
So tell me a bit more about your power wash drone that's already out. Um, what is the ROI that the typical industrial coating company would get on this drone versus a regular industrial pressure wash machine?
Right, right. So it is expensive, right? The drones are a capital expense, but the ROI can be exceedingly high. We've had some of our companies that go out and do one job and make enough money to pay for the drone. Now that's
Mm.
not the norm, that's the exception, obviously, but there are those situations where the value creation is just extremely high. So for coaters, painters, we have a few drones with the cleaning drones with some painters. The cleaning drone is just a static cleans, right? So it's not doing surface preparation, although it does do SPC, SP2, or SP1, surface prep one, and we actually have another NACE award for that as well. So one for that. So it'll take away visible and non-visible contaminants, oils and greases and different things to help you lay down a better, initial coat of coating of paint, whether it's a primer or whatever it might be. So coating companies do use the power wash drone, but a lot of companies are in the business of, and maybe not necessarily in the United States, but a good example is Australia. Right,
Hmm.
the largest painting contracting company over there, typical contract includes not only painting the structure but also maintaining it. So they're washing these buildings over time, over these long term, these could be 10 or 20-year long contracts, right?
Wow.
So they're washing these buildings long term. And there the ROI is immense because if they had to bring out a lift to do the job, it only takes a couple jobs that you rent a lift for and you've paid for the price of the drone. Not to mention the fact that it's in essence, it's going to be maybe 20 times faster than if you're
Yeah.
doing it with people.
So is this technology only for giant firms, or can mid-sized painting companies also use it?
Mid-sized and smaller ones too. It's going to
Hmm.
depend on their user base and their contracts and what they're doing. But if they're doing building cleaning of any type, this can be a significant enhancement to their business line and increase their ROI.
Okay. What's the biggest myth or misconception about using drones in coatings and cleaning?
A lot of it is setting expectations. Some people see it doing this and they say, oh, if it can do that, then it can do this crazy, really complicated thing over here. Well, maybe not, So one of the things I like to tell people that are interested in buying one of these systems, especially the power wash drones, the spray painting drone is not available to the general market yet. Let me just put that out there first. We're only putting it with QP1 contractors. That's an AMP designation right now because we have a limited number of them that are out for field testing. But the goal is to, harden them, make them ready for, battle test them, so to speak, make them ready for the market in January. But for the coating contractors that can use this, it can unlock a huge amount of value, and it can be a small company. It doesn't necessarily have to be a large company.
Okay. How much does one of these go for?
So we have two models. One model is $47,000 and one model is 60,000. The one that's 60,000 has a special designation. It's compliant with the National Defense Authorization Act, NDAA.
Mhm.
We're working with the U.S. Army on the next generation of these power wash drones, and the NDAA requirement is if you're a federal property, you must use NDAA compliant drones. And then in 7 of the 50 states, you also, if it's state and or local government property, you have to use NDAA compliant drones. But one of the things I like to tell people about this technology is, there are 3 things you need to be successful. The drone is 1, and that's not necessarily the most important. The equipment is 2, but the most important is the knowledge.
Yeah.
Because you have to know how to use the drone, you have to know how to use your equipment, and you have to know how to clean, right? So if you don't have the knowledge part, you may not be successful. And that is also what's included in the price of the drone
Okay.
from Apellix. And one of the things we really pride ourselves on is our ability to help our customers onboard this technology. Because if they're not successful, we're not successful. So we want them to have the skill set when we finish with our training for them to then go on and do great things with their drone.
As a former painting company owner, I know how difficult it is to clean out a spray machine. Are these ones just as difficult to clean out?
Exactly. It's exactly the same. We're using the standard equipment. Nothing's changed on it. The only thing that's a new variable is the trigger that's mounted on the drone that turns on and off the paint.
Oh,
Because
okay.
instead of squeezing one with your hand, the computer turns on and off the paint. So there's an actuator on there that turns on and off. But everything else is industry standard. Industry standard
Oh, okay.
wands, tips, industry standard hoses, industry standard pumps. Doesn't matter if it's an electric pump, a pneumatic pump, as long as it's an airless paint spray system and it hooks up to your standard things, then the drone can utilize it. But you still have to clean it out at the end of the day, and then you also have to clean off the drone because the drone will get overspray on it.
Yep, gotcha. That makes sense. So, beyond painting and coatings, where do you see aerial robotics reshaping industrial work next?
Well, this goes to the whole war on corrosion thing, right? So
Hmm.
our goal at Apellix is to be a company that is taking asset management from cradle to grave, so to speak, right? So when something is new, be able to clean it and paint it with a drone. Over time, as it needs cleaning, clean it with a drone. Over time, when it needs spot repair, where there's a place where there's rust, blast that area with a drone, then clean it, and then apply your coating. And you just put a band-aid on there, maybe to give you several more years before you have to take the whole thing down to bare metal and repaint it. So eventually we see robotics being able to do that full cycle because, as you know, it's hard to get labor, right? Hard to get qualified people to do the applications, but it's not hard to get somebody to operate a drone
Hmm.
because it's a lot more fun to fly the drone or to push the buttons and have the drone fly itself than it is to actually have that sprayer in your hand being up on a lift, up in the air trying to spray something.
Yeah, it's much less tedious and much more less difficult, less physically demanding.
It's less physically demanding, a little more mentally demanding because you're focusing
Hmm.
on operating a robotic system. As far as job creation and job loss, I don't see there's any. If anything, there's job creation because now with the shortage of painters, with the backlog of industrial infrastructure that needs service, this should hopefully open up more painters coming into the market to do more than they can because you still have to have the painter there, right? They still
Yeah.
have to fill the bucket, run the drone, all the things. Yes, you can maybe accomplish the job faster, but you still need the painter. So this is in my view, it's a job enhancer. It creates jobs.
Hmm. Do you see this evolving to potentially the residential market? Is there potential for that?
It is, but that'll be long term because it's one of the things right now. For example, the drone for painting only does what the drone sees as a flat vertical surface.
Yep.
So a great example is tomorrow we're going to be painting an above ground storage tank. So to the drone, even though that's a big circle, right? To the drone, it looks flat because when it's up close, it's only looking at 16 inches or something. So
Right.
to the drone, that seems like a flat surface. So that's appropriate. But if it's a complicated surface with like doors and windows and stuff like that, where you have to cut in, no, that's not anything the drone can do now or the near future. But as part of some of the autonomy that we're adding in with our work with the U.S. Army, that is something that we'll be adding into the drone at some point in time in the future. But it's going to take a while before it gets there. The other thing is they're expensive, right? So painting a house, you get a certain amount of money, but painting an industrial infrastructure, the same job, you're going to make a lot more money because it requires qualifications and certifications and safety training sometimes to even get inside some of these facilities. But the knowledge requirements are a lot higher because
Yeah.
again, you've switched from architectural coding, which is primarily aesthetic. I mean, there's some protection of the underlying substrate to coatings. So you're no longer painting, you're coating when you're in the industrial world and you're applying a coating system. And so there you're talking about protecting the underlying asset. And you're talking about anything from a $1 billion warship that you're coating and you're putting zinc epoxies on there with 17 pound per gallon paint. So it's quite a different world than painting,
Yeah.
latex.
Yeah, for sure. There'd be a lot of houses that you'd have to paint to to make that up.
Right. But eventually the technology will get better, faster,
Yeah.
cheaper. And as that price point comes down, then it'll become more appropriate for the residential market.
Hmm. That makes sense. So you talk a lot about, working with the military. What other types of applications or users is this product good for?
Oh, it's fantastic. When we built this, we had no idea of how it was going to be used. I mean, we built it saying, okay, you can clean things with it. But our companies out there every day I'll look on social media and there's new postings from our companies doing really amazing things, especially because a lot of the built environment is a complicated geometric structure. And so to clean it the normal way with a lift might be difficult. For example, we had a customer cleaning a sloped roof that had 30 years of coal ash on top of it and it was literally this thick, right? And they break it down with the power washer to smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller chunks and wash it over the side. And I said, guys, this is the wrong tool. You shouldn't be using the cleaning drone to do that. And they're like, no, Bob, you don't understand. This is the only tool. We cannot put a person on that roof because we don't know the structural integrity. We cannot reach that roof
Oh.
with a lift because there's not a lift on the market with a long enough articulating arm to reach that part of our facility. Our only other option was a 200 and some foot crane with somebody dangling from a basket with a pressure washer cleaning it. And the safety guy said no. So this was the only way. So we
Hmm.
see people doing all sorts of amazing things, anything from like cleaning insulators on power lines to cruise ships. So we've put in proposals for 4 drones on a brand new cruise ship that's being built so that when they're at night, they can come out and clean the windows. So you wake up and there's no salt on your windows anymore. So just a
Hmm.
ton of different applications out there that we hadn't even thought of.
Hmm. So how do you get more clients, or how do you get more people purchasing your product?
We're very fortunate. We aren't doing very much in the way of outbound marketing other than going to conferences and speaking, a few events that we present at. For example, we're going to be at AMP, the Association for Materials Performance and Protection, one of the large painting things next year. I'll be speaking there as a presenter. We'll have an exhibit there, and then I'll also be in some of the subcommittees where they have technical specifications that they're writing for different things, be it ships or transmission lines or the power grid or whatever. And our main input is those, but also the other way we get business is from our customers. Every time our customer goes out there and posts a video of them doing something, people say, oh, wow, that's cool. I'm interested in buying one of those drones. And we often invite our customers to events. Like we'll pay for an event with an exhibit. They'll come and they'll bring their drone and then they'll talk to people. So if they need cleaning, we give them this customer. That way we're helping that customer grow and build their business. If they decide they want to buy a drone, then they talk to us. And even a lot of these companies that may want to buy a drone, they may want to see a drone cleaning job first before they buy one. So this is a way for us to help our customers because again, Apellix is successful when our customers are successful. So we need to make sure that we're doing all we can to help promote them. Similarly, those amazing posts, right? Anytime we get one, we like to amplify that and send that out and say, oh, okay, if you're in this area and you need drone cleaning, look at what this company is doing with their Apellix. Contact them for jobs. So we've literally provided millions of dollars worth of jobs to our customers.
Wow, that's amazing and smart. That's a great business model.
Yeah, we're very, very fortunate.
So it sounds like you guys are doing really well. What would you say is the biggest challenge in your business right now?
Well, right now it's been the craziness with the regulations, tariffs, changing all the time. That is the main thing for us.
Right. So I guess if you had a magic wand that you could wave that would solve any one problem in the business, what would that be?
I'm going to break that into two because they're somewhat related. Number one is the supply chain to make sure that we have everything that we can build these drones fast enough for customers to want to buy them. But number two is removing any obstacles to the purchasing process and transferring the knowledge properly. Because it comes back to my statement that to be successful in this, you have to have the knowledge of how to run your equipment and the drone and how to clean and or how to coat or paint. So knowledge transfer is an important part of that. And that, again, is part of something I personally take a lot of pride in that we do very well. Our customer service engineers and our trainers are just out of this world, phenomenal people that sit down with you, make sure that you understand everything when you buy your drone. And they're available. I mean, our guys get calls because we're in 21 countries in the middle of the night and they're answering these calls and helping people, so it's just very great to have such a amazing team here at Apellix that are helping service our customers.
That's fantastic. And you guys are American based, correct?
Yeah, we design, build, manufacture the drones right here in Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay, fantastic.
Well, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So because you're a successful business painting contractor that started a business, grew it, and then eventually sold it once it got larger, would a painting drone have been advantageous for you for your commercial and industrial jobs?
I think it would have actually, yeah. We did do large some large jobs. Like we did some skyscrapers, some architectural stuff. So looking back, I don't know if we did enough to that would have made it worth it. So I probably would have had to calculate the potential ROI.
Yeah.
But if this was available to me at that time, I would have leaned into it more because so few people are doing it. That just tells me there's going to be less competition. And like you said, with the corrosion industry being what it is, I think you said 6% or 3% of the GDP. That just says that there's absolutely a market for it. I suspect there's a high demand and a low supply. You can charge more for it. So leaning into that, it would make sense.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head. Anytime there's a lack of supply and a huge demand, you get outsized profits. And a lot of our customers are reaping outsized profits right now because their competitors are doing it the old way. And the new way with the drone is so much faster, safer, and cheaper. And they're still charging the same amount as the people that are doing it the old way. And in part, a lot of that is the value proposition to the project, to the property owner, is scheduling and the ability to get in and get out and not be disruptive. So think of oil and gas, for example, with turnarounds. Twice a year, they'll shut down their facility and do all the maintenance at once, right? And then turn it back on. And so everything's in there at the last minute. This happens, that happens, that happens. And so getting extra equipment in, even scaffolding. Scaffolding's a pain because you have to schedule it, put it up, get up there and do the work, then tear the scaffolding down and then haul it away. And there's where a drone is really exciting because you bring the drone in, do the job, and you leave. And so it's like 100 times faster than if you're trying to do it with scaffolding in certain instances.
Yeah, that makes sense. And tell me a bit more about how that would affect insurance.
That's a great question. We are seeing, it's a different type of insurance, but it's also, you're not putting a person at elevation, so your insurance goes down. And then what's really interesting is we are seeing now some of the buildings that started out with mostly hospitals, and then now it's even, and then hotels, and then now it's even office buildings that are putting out RFPs for cleaning that specify drone cleaning.
Oh, nice. Good. That's really good.
Yeah.
And so, I was thinking that it would make sense for those types of companies to.
Yeah, the main reason is liability and insurance. Yeah. Even if it's a contractor that's coming in to do the work, if somebody gets hurt on the job site, that's horrible for the company that hired the subcontractor. So anytime you can, eliminate somebody working at elevation and put a robot up there, in my opinion, that's a fantastic thing to do.
Absolutely, especially if it's not actually taking jobs away and potentially even creating more.
Yeah, exactly.
Any last piece of advice or message you want to leave listeners with?
One last thing is coming back to your question earlier about what are some of the use cases for this. And I mentioned a few of the innovative ones like cleaning insulators or church steeples, whatever it might be. But there's an interesting product made by NASA. It's called Purity, and it removes carbon dioxide from the air. It actually cleans the air. And there have been some studies where they apply it to a wall, and then when cars or trucks drive by, it removes the nitrous oxide, so it prevents smog from forming. Oh. And then smog, of course, is one of the leading causes of lung cancers and deaths and asthma and different health issues, right? But I would love to see in the United States, for example, that product applied to all the sound walls, all the barriers, the sound barriers on the side of the interstate highway system, where it's taking the pollutants out of the air and making the air cleaner. And that's nothing other than a specialty coating, right? It's something you apply with a paint spray system. Now, it's not your typical airless paint spray. It's HPLV. So we don't have the technology yet to apply that, but as soon as the painting drone gets done with the traditional, standard airless paint spray system, we'll start working on that. But to me, that is just an amazing thing to do because that's extending the benefits to a societal and a health perspective, as well as to just protecting the asset that you're coating.
Where can people follow you or get in touch?
So they're welcome to visit our website at www.apellix.com. That's APELLIX, or any of the social media sites. We're on there as well. You can either search with the hashtag Apellix or hashtag Apellix at work if you want to find some really cool videos of the drone out there cleaning pretty amazing things all around the world.
Thanks for tuning into today's episode. If you want to keep up with what we're doing, hit subscribe, follow, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're doing $1 million a year or more and want help scaling, go to www.passionatemediamarketing.com. Catch you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. This is the Painter's Business Podcast with Stephanie Stover.